It's the Sunday morning sermon edition of the Arch Advocate podcast. This episode's probably going to get a little. It may sound a little rough. It may sound like I'm, going after people or condemning people. And what I would warn you up front, because I can kind of see where my mind's going to be going. What I would warn you up front is if you're going to. If you're going to understand what I'm about to say, you're going to have to hear the whole thing and hear the whole context of it. So if you don't have, I don't know how long this podcast is going to last at the moment because I'm just right now sitting down to record it. But you see how much time this podcast take and then decide if you have the time to listen to the whole thing. Because you're going to have to hear it in a whole chunk if you're going to understand the context, right? What sparked this idea? I'm just going to have to take you from the beginning on this. Some of you know I've been trying to get Owen Benjamin on my podcast for quite a while. A few months. I've probably written, I don't know, maybe 5 emails. So not, I haven't put a great deal of work into it, a little bit. I tried making some jokes a couple of times. I'm not as funny as I think I am. By the way, I think I'm hilarious. All right? That's one thing you have to know about me. I've had a couple of you listeners I know have written into the show as I have requested you to, and I would encourage you to continue to do that. I think his email address is whydidn'ttheylaugh at gmail.com. As a matter of fact, you know what? Let me pull this up here for you. I will pull it up. Owen Benjamin. Yeah, why didn't they laugh? With no punctuation and no spaces. Why didn't they laugh at gmail.com? That is Owen Benjamin's email. So if you would write him an email and say, hey, would you come on the Arch Advocate podcast? I still want him on my show. But his is one of the YouTube podcasts that I really enjoy, and I watch as often as I can. I can't always because they're long. That dude has a brilliant mind, and he can talk for a very long time by himself, right? It's not easy, man. like sitting down and getting into stream of conscious and going for it and making sense and being funny. Like I don't have that component. Like there's one thing I wish I had in my life was that ability to make observations and make them humorous. To have observational humor and be able to just spit it out in the licks like these guys do. But I don't, I've not spent the last, 25 years of my life practicing comedy on stage, in a public speaking sort of platform. So I don't have that, you know what I mean? I try to make jokes and it doesn't always work. But anyways, I really appreciate his show. I appreciate his point of view. And most of all, I want Owen Benjamin on the show, mostly just so I can, look into the camera and look him in his eyes, if you will, through the camera on the other side of the planet, and say thank you. All right, this is a guy that made a hard stand against evil. That's not easy to do. You think it's easy, but it's not. Right? Anytime that old saying, "No good deed goes unpunished." There's a reason why we have that in our vernacular. There's a reason why that saying exists. Right? So there was a very powerful, very prominent person in Owen Benjamin's world. And Mr. Benjamin was very near the top. Very, very, very much closer to the top than any of us are ever going to be when it comes to fame as it applies to Hollywood. Right? He was the star of his own movie. Right? To be the star in a movie, that's like you're getting dangerously close to wherever it is that Tom Cruise is at. You know what I mean? He was a star in his own movie. He was in a number of Adam Sandler movies. You know what I mean? That's what I mean. You're in a I'm not saying he was the biggest star in the world, but bigger star than I'll ever be, baby. You better believe that, right? And a very, very wealthy, very powerful California guy goes on social media and says that he's going to start giving chemicals to his child, chemicals that will burn that child's body irreparably, because his little kid was, his little baby was saying things like, "Oh, I think I'm a girl," and whatever, right? And so his dad, being the social justice warrior, being the virtue signaler that he was, decided to share with the whole world that he was going to start giving, what chlorine is, right? You put chlorine in a pool, you know what it does? Right? It doesn't clean the water. It burns all of the things that are in it that are bad. That's what it does. It's like a sort of like a carcinogen. You know what I mean? It burns the things that you don't want in there, right? So these chemicals that people are given to their children, the hormone therapy and all that, all it's doing is burning what is naturally in their body. It's demonic. It's demonic. And this guy is bragging about it. And Owen Benjamin throws his career in the toilet over this issue. Right? He's in a world. Now listen, this is like, if you're listening, it's going to be hard to explain like what a big deal. Listen, I hate to sound like I'm bragging. I'm really not. There was a time just a few years ago, like 3-4 years ago, when I was commissioned to go up to Malibu, California, and do a bunch of work for a couple of months, right? And during that time, like, I lived in Malibu, California. And Malibu, by the way, Malibu has a population of just over 12,000, right? It's this little tiny little village, right? It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. But in Malibu, Malibu is just north of Los Angeles. All right, so let me if you can picture in your mind, it's on the beach. And there's Malibu, and then just underneath Malibu, California, is a place called Pacific Palisades, right? And that's also aptly named. And Pacific Palisades is like Malibu, only there's a lot more people. And then underneath Pacific Palisades is Santa Monica, right? And Santa Monica is, that's where you pick up the 10 or the 405, and that's how you get to wherever your agent lives. But in Malibu, it's where all the stars live. Sean Penn lives there. Mel Gibson lives there. They all live there. They all live there, right? And if you're not, a celebrity who's made millions of dollars through your celebrity status, there's only two other classes of people that live there. And those two classes are the celebrities' spouses and the celebrities' lawyers, otherwise known as agents. It's this village of 12,000 people, and they all work together. And they all live in this fantasy world where they get paid king's ransoms, just huge sums of money for putting makeup on their face and pretending to be somebody else. Right? They live in this weird world where somehow this one little ability, right, to recite your lines when you're supposed to, and put your own craft in. I'm not knocking the craft. Listen, I can't act. All right, you think you can act, you can't. All right, it's very difficult. But at the same time, it's like, I don't know if it's worth a $20 million check. You know what I mean? I don't know, take Johnny Depp, getting whatever he got. Let's just call it $50 million. It's like, dude, you got $50 million to show up to work every day on time for 6 months? Yeah. Did you cure cancer at the same time or something? Or like, why'd you get some? Anyways, let me digress off of that point. But what I was going to say is, it is when you're in that environment and you're like meeting people, I met like a bunch of people. I met James Woods. I met, what's his name? Charlie Sheen's Richards. What's her name? Kathy Richards or whatever. Just a sweet little thing. Really nice lady. I met Jamie Foxx. I met Michael Madsen, right, from all the Quentin Tarantino movies. I met Andy Dick. Like when I say met, like I met these people. I talked with them, met a bunch of these people. And most of those people are very nice people, but the thing is that they're in this weird little bubble, and they all kind of understand that if they step out of line, they would get in trouble with like Harvey Weinstein. You know what I mean? And Harvey Weinstein used to run that town, and everybody knew that he was a rapist and said nothing. Now, why would somebody not speak up? Why would somebody not speak if they knew that this man was an actual rapist? Like, this was so far outside of the, well, I heard the guy, you know, he likes to crush ass. It's like, no, that's not what people believed about Harvey Weinstein. That's not what those people believed about Harvey Weinstein. Everybody in that town knew for a fact that Harvey Weinstein was an actual rapist. And they said nothing. Why? Well, they had something to protect. $20 million goes a long ways, people. Right? Being invited onto the red carpet so that a camera can be turned on you so that the whole world might see that you are one of the important people. That has to be protected. That's status. That's power. And it has to be protected. And if you go against the grain, you are going to find yourself in a position of vulnerability. Because your craft, it won't be enough. Your mastery of thespianism is not going to be enough when Harvey Weinstein calls your agents and says, fire that person. Your talent won't be enough. You won't be good enough. So you will keep your mouth shut. Now, you know what you are in that position? When you are not free to speak, you're a slave. You do not have the freedom to speak up for what is right. When you do that, then you are a slave. You are a slave to your community, and you are a slave to your own appetites. You are a slave. That's why none of those people spoke up. They're slaves. This is where we're going to get into the idea of freedom, and the freedom as it applies to speech. And we all know that we have the freedom of speech, right? But the freedom of speech is two-ply, all right? There's two sides to it. Freedom means you are free to do something, right? Or free to access something. Or just very simply, freedom means free to ... right? But it also means freedom from, right? We have freedom from slavery, right? But it also means you are free to, experience the fruit of your own labor as it applies in a free and open market. Freedom has two sides. You're free to do something and you're free from something. And if you don't have both of those freedoms, then you don't have freedom, right? These people that are in Malibu, they do not have the freedom of speech. The First Amendment doesn't apply to them. They have forsaken it. They have given it up. Right? Because they were not free to speak up against Harvey Weinstein. They were not free from the consequences of what would have happened if they did. They were not free. Nor are they to this day. I mean, there's a number of them that are. James Woods is, as much as I hate Rose McGowan, I mean, she spoke up, good for her. Right? That whole Me Too movement, which is complete bullshit, like that started actually from a good place. You know what I mean? There were women that were getting raped by Harvey Weinstein, and they spoke up. Unfortunately, instead of condemning Hollywood, for some reason, they decided to blame me. It was the conservative Christians' fault. Oh, these conservatives. They made Harvey Weinstein rape me. It's like, dude, I didn't rape you. I never condone that. Had I known that was going on, I would, you know what I mean? Like, I would have come to your defense if you would have said something, as I come to your defense now. We can't have rapists. Right? If you're free to speak, then you're free to speak. And if it doesn't come with a consequence, then it's not really freedom, is it? Right? That's the dual nature, the duality of freedom. It's freedom to and freedom from. And if it's not both of those things, then it's not freedom, it's something else. It's a luxury. Right? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like if you can speak your mind and not have consequences and not have people hate you for what you're saying, then you're not expressing freedom. You're just talking shit. You are a hobbyist. You're living in the luxury of just being able to blurt things out as you see them. True freedom has consequences. Right? Do you understand that? Like the reason we are free is because a whole bunch of people died in the pursuit of it. That's why we're free. And if you don't appreciate those consequences, then you're not free. You're not experiencing freedom. And I wanted to have Owen Benjamin on this show because it was like he took a stand. And he said, no, I'm free. I'm free. I'm going to speak this out. I'm going to say what I want to say because I'm seeing that there is a demonic evil that is taking place and I will not stand for it. I'm going to speak against it even though I know that this will be severely detrimental to my established career. And I've made it. This was a guy who made it. He was already there. That green promised land of development deals. You know what a development deal is? It's where they give you a whole bunch of money for nothing. Right? They say, the studio comes to you, you're an actor, and they say, hey, listen, we want to make this sitcom, right? We want you to be a part of it. We're gonna move it to the next level of development. Here's $5 million. We just want to lock you in and make sure you're on board. And then you take that $5 million and you stick it in your bank account. And 6 months later, the studio comes back and they say, you know what? We're gonna scrap that. Forget it. We don't want you to work here. We're not gonna do the show. Like 9 out of 10 development deals, that's how they end. Actually, it's probably even higher. It's probably 95 out of 100. Right? That's the majority of development deals. And guess what? You get to keep the money. They don't ask. It's not like it's not like a book deal. Book deal is they give you, $50,000 and right up into the moment where they actually start printing that book, that book company can say, we're not going to do the book and you have to give us that money back. That's not how development deals work. Right? There's a lot of actors that you haven't heard of for like 2 decades, and guess what they've been doing the whole time? They've just been sitting around getting development deals. Like that's where Owen Benjamin had ascended to. He had ascended to a place where it's like he could work on sitcoms, which he did, and he could be in Adam Sandler movies, and he could be the star of his own movie, and be a stand-up comic, and get Netflix specials where they give you, $2 million just to have the rights to, an hour's worth of video of just you doing your normal job. That's where Owen Benjamin, that's the strata that he had gotten to. And he threw it all away. And why? Because he saw evil happening in the world, and he stood up and said, no, I don't care about the money. I don't care about the fame. I am not going to stand by idly as evil takes place. That's how people like Hitler get into power. We're not doing that again. And I wanted to have Owen Benjamin on this show for a lot of reasons. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk to him about, but mostly I just wanted to say, hey, Owen, thank you. Thank you, because now other people can see that. They can see it and say, well, I guess if Owen Benjamin is courageous enough and is willing to sacrifice his own life and the security of his own family in the name of righteousness, I guess I can too. Right? There's a very important component to society where it's the role models and leaders and people who can just be visibly seen doing the right thing. It inspires people. That's why the stories of guys like Chesty Puller and these kind of people are so inspiring. Because we can read the stories of their lives, or have people tell us the story of these people's lives, and we can be like, oh, I guess there's something in me that's also similar to that. I guess I'm also capable of doing that. And then we can be inspired, and we can move ourselves forward. That's freedom. And it's, in Owen Benjamin's case, it is a true example of freedom. Because it came with consequences, severe consequences. Everybody hates that guy now. Not, everybody in the Hollywood world. They all hate him. They won't work with him. Agents won't talk to him. Movie studios won't talk to him. Netflix won't talk to him. Right? Freedom. It comes with consequences. There's two sides to it. You are free to do something, and you are free from something. I am free from listen, and this is what I wanted to get to. And you are free. You are free. But you won't understand it unless you experience it, unless you know it, right? I can tell you that you're free. The Declaration of Independence can tell you that you're free. The Bill of Rights, the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States will tell you that you are free to speak. But you're not going to know it unless you speak. And your words, whatever it is that you speak, it will not have any validity unless it is both right and full of consequences. You know what I mean? When you understand that it is imperative, let me take back, not when you understand, but it is imperative that you understand that in these times you must speak to your own hurt, right? King Solomon wrote something that is something about a man who will tell the truth even to his own hurt, is the way that it's written in the King James. A man will speak the truth, even, a good man or a righteous man will speak the truth even to his own hurt. That's when you know it's the truth. When you know, when I say this is going to cause me pain. Right? You can't be looking to use words to cause other people discomfort and pain. One good indicator that what you're saying is the truth is if you know that when you say it, it's going to cause you pain. Right? If you're looking to go around and say things to cause other people pain and not you, well, then you're just a sociopath. You're just some guy using your luxury to do damage to other people when you know that what you say is going to hurt you. By saying it, that's when you know. People, there's this thing going on right now in Western civilization where people will they'll say, oh, you're a science denier. Oh, you don't believe in global warming? No, I don't. Oh my God, you don't believe in climate change? No, I don't believe you. Oh my God, how can you say that? All of the scientists say that it's so. Well, I believe that the climate is changing. Because the climate's always changing. Oh, well, that's not what we meant. Because here's the thing. This is why I can say this, and it's like, dude, I don't care what you say about me. I know that I'm right, and here's why. Because first you called it global warming. Well, of course I believe that the globe is warming. Because we know that a number of times in the history of this planet, the Earth froze. So if it froze, then because it got too far away from the sun, then there must be another side of it where it gets too close to the sun. Oh, no. We don't call it global warming anymore because when we made that argument, too many people came back on top of that argument with an argument that made more sense. So now we're going to call it climate change. Oh, okay. I'll make the same argument then. Of course I believe the climate's changing. I believe it's always in a state of flux. Oh, no. Right? You come back to them with that truth. Well, of course the climate's changing. It's always changing. Every fossil record and everything that we know about the scientific process and the scientific method, everything tells us that the climate has always been changing. And that it has a remarkable way of balancing itself out and keeping everything alive. And it has a remarkable way of healing itself and purifying the air and purifying the water and, all these things. So what do? They say, oh, no, it's man-made. Right? No, this is man-made climate change. What are you, a science denier? It's like, well, I've just beaten 2 of your arguments, so let's go for the old hat trick then. Man-made climate change. Sounds interesting. There's 7 billion people on the planet right now, as far as we know. That's never happened before. And as it is that I believe that everything affects everything, okay, I'm all in. Man-made climate change, you betcha. Mankind is changing the climate with their horrible automobiles and the exhaust that comes out of the back of them. Right? What are we going to do about it? What has been their solution so far? Well, they paraded a bunch of false prophets in front of us, Al Gore, saying, oh, the polar ice caps are going to melt by 2014. Leonardo DiCaprio, Bill Nye, the not science guy, the not a scientist guy. This is who these are the ambassadors that they've sent to us. Non-scientists and false prophets. Those were the ambassadors. And what were the solutions? We're going to tax people a carbon tax so that we can send it to politicians so that they might enrich their lives. That's been their whole solution. I can't believe you. Right? So no, I don't believe you. I don't believe in man-made climate change because from what you people have done so far, it is painfully obvious that you don't believe it either. You just want something that you can feel virtuous over. And I don't need your approval. There are people that will shout you down and say, oh, what are you, a science denier? I don't want to be your friend. And we feel like, oh, please, I want you to be my friend. It's like, dude, be free. Those people were never going to be your friend. They weren't going to be your friend to begin with. You can agree with them all you want. They were never going to be your friend because they are not capable of friendship. They're not capable of being compassionate with their fellow man. All they want is to feel virtuous in their emotions. They don't want to actually be virtuous. They just want to feel virtuous. Because being virtuous requires a God. And they don't want that. Right? Truth. The pursuit of truth. The pursuit of excellence. You have to have a reason for those things. And there's only one place that reason comes from. And they don't want it. So they'll take the counterfeit, they'll take the feeling of virtuousness. And how do they get that feeling? By looking at you and saying, you're a bad person. It's like, okay, well, you weren't going to be my friend to begin with, so I don't give a damn what you think. This is what who was it, Hegel or Heidegger or whatever? This is what he meant when he said, like, you will not know true freedom until you can separate yourself from caring about what other people think of you. This is kind of how I interpret it. Like, you have to understand that nobody's going to agree with you. Right? There are 7 billion people on this planet, and none of them will agree with you. None of them. Right? Like in America, right, we have, unfortunately, we've kind of turned into a two-party system. There's some outliers, but let's just say you're a Republican, right? Well, automatically, half of the population, boom, it's gone. Half of the United States will disagree with you right there. Right? There's 340 million people. Let's just call it 350. Or let's just call it an even 300. That's 150 million people that are already, from just that one statement, half of the population of the United States will not agree with you. So now you're a Republican, you've got half of the Republicans on your side. I'm not so fast. Right? Take John McCain. Arizona senator just announced that he's not going to be taking his medicine anymore. He's going to die soon. Right? In the Republican Party, everybody who's a registered Republican, I would say half of those people hate John McCain and half of them love him. Right? So now you're 150 million people, and now it's down to 75. Right? Now out of that 75 million people, half of those people are going to be happy that Trump is president, and the other are just going to be happy that a Republican is in there. They don't like him, but they're just glad that it's not Hillary. So now that's half of that. And I can keep doing this all day long. Donald Trump, right? Ted Cruz, half and half. What the solution as far as the border wall and how we treat what immigration policy is going to be, half. We can keep doing this. Marijuana, should it be legal or should it be criminalized? Half. We can keep doing this all day long until it comes down to just you and me, and guess what? If you and I spend long enough on it, we will find something that we both disagree vehemently about. And we can become enemies over that one issue. Right? Nobody agrees with you is what I'm trying to say. And there is freedom in that. There is freedom in that. When you understand that they weren't going to be your friends anyways. Right? These people that go around and they say, what are you, a science denier? And then they talk about burning their own children with chemicals. It's like, I don't want you to be my friend. I don't want to know you. And I don't want to try to reason with you either. Sorry, Stefan Molyneux and Jordan B. Peterson, whatever. It's like, dude, when you've gone to that demonic level, I don't want to be your friend. I don't want to reason with you. I do not want you to do well. I want you to die. I want you to be off my planet. You've gone too far, and I don't believe that you're salvageable. I don't care what you think. If that's what you've come to, like burning your own children with chemicals, if that's what you've come to, I don't care what you think. I don't want you to be my friend. And if you're going to stand there and be like, you're a science denier if you don't believe in global warming, it's like, you piece of shit, I don't give a damn what you think about me. I don't want you to be my friend. I don't need your approval. I don't want your approval. Matter of fact, if you're the kind of person that goes around telling people that they're a science denier just because you don't want your tax dollars going to fatten up politicians, I don't need your approval. And if I did get your approval, I would be suspicious of myself. I would be worried about what kind of man I am if I was getting your approval. There's freedom in that. And it's a fine line between like not giving an F and like being confident in your own beliefs. You should care about what other people think. You know what I mean? Like if you want other people to consider your point of view, and so you work hard and you strive to better your linguistic abilities, and you learn more powers of persuasion so that you can get people to see your point of view. Like that's good. And what's also good is at a certain point you have to understand that, look, when it comes down to it, people aren't going to agree with you. They're not going to agree with you. There's 7 billion people on this planet and none of them are going to agree with you 100% on everything. There's freedom in that. And the freedom is this, it's like, well, if that's true, then I might as well take ownership of my own life and live my life with a clear conscience. And to the best of my ability, try to seek the truth. And try to follow God into whatever path of righteousness that He has for me. and understand that I am enough. That whatever it is that God has given me to deal with the pains and the trials of this world are enough. More than enough. The thing that I was looking at Owen Benjamin, because what kicked this off is like for the last 3 or 4 days, Owen, you've been complaining too much about these people. You're giving them way too much space in your own head. Yeah, Theo Vaughn's a piece of shit who is throwing you under the bus because he believes that if he does that later on at some point in the future, there's going to be some money in it for him. That's a piece of shit move. That's a piece of shit who doesn't believe in his own talents enough. That he believes that he has to do hurt, do damage, and speak damage against his friends to make his way through life. That's a piece of shit. You're talking about Joe Rogan and him not standing up for Alex Jones, and you're talking about Sam Harris. It's like, dude, okay, listen, Sam Harris is a piece of shit. And his whole thing in life is the idea of determinism. I got to break it to you, Owen. Determinism is about a 500-year-old argument. It was started by a guy named John Calvin, who started a whole nother branch of Christianity called Calvinism based on that one idea. Because John Calvin was actually a very smart, very devout lover of Jesus Christ. And he wrote volumes and volumes and volumes of books. A lot. Like, that guy wrote a lot. Deep, profound things. But the one thing he's known for, the one thing that sparked an entire movement of Christianity and eventually got him labeled as a Catholic, he was labeled as a heretic on this one idea that changed a large portion of Christianity, was determinism. Or as he called it, predestination. It's an old argument. It was bullshit 500 years ago, and it's even worse when Sam Harris does it. Because at this point, we can, because I'm not a Calvinist, and I'm not, I have friends, dear friends who are Calvinists, but like, I'm not a Calvinist. I think it's a stupid idea. I think it was a weak-ass argument back then. And at least we can say that John Calvin at least had a component of God in it. Sam Harris is plagiarizing Calvin without God. It's Calvinism minus God. Calvinism is God's omnipotence minus like the wonder and mystery of life, right? Right. Take all of God's omnipotent power and the ability to know the future and the past and the ability to keep stars and planets in orbit and all this other thing. Take all of that mystical wonder, and remove the idea of multiple outcomes. Remove possibility. That's what I'm looking for. Take all of the wonders of God and just remove possibility. That's what Calvinism is. Right? Now take that, move it over here, and now just remove God completely from it. That's what Sam Harris is. It's weak, and it only works on the weak-minded. It was weak 500 years ago, and Sam Harris, God bless him, figured out a way to make it even weaker. Stop talking about him. Don't give him space. Like if for some reason, if my books sell out of control and somehow I rise to prominence and I get, people wanting to debate me, like I would never sit down and debate Sam Harris. I would never do that. It's like I have absolutely no interest in considering your point of view because I've already considered it and I found it to be bullshit. Therefore, since I've dismissed Calvin, and all you've done is taken Calvin's work and just removed God from it, it's like I don't have any room for you in my head. I have no interest in persuading you to my point of view. I have no interest in considering your point of view. I have no interest in it. There's nothing in it for me, and there's nothing in it for you. So therefore, you don't get any space in here. You don't get any space in my mind. I'm not going to give you anything. And people that slander you and throw you under the bus, and this is for all of you, right? You can tell a lot about people by how they speak about their friends when they're not around. If you're around somebody and they're bad-mouthing somebody who's not there, guess what? When you're not around, they are bad-mouthing you. That is a fact. So when people start talking shit about other people, when they're around you, you have to understand that. You have to understand, like, this is not somebody I want around me. And if that person goes and starts slandering me to other people, it's like, I don't care if you do that. Because you don't have any, I'm not leasing you any space in my head. If you're a weak individual who has to speak poorly about other people to make yourself feel better, or to enrich your pocketbook, or to increase your standing in life, you're a rotten person who has no self-confidence in what God has given you. And you are not free. And I am free. And I do not associate with slaves, because I am a free man. And you are a slave. Now, if you want to get free, you want to go out and go do the real work to make yourself free, then I'll be your friend. Then I'll talk to you. But if you're just saying things that please people and tickle people's, emotions and that sort of thing, it's like, nah, you're not a quality person. I don't need you. I'm not gonna lease you any space. What I wanted to say was, like, all this time that Owen Benjamin has been putting into these people who have been, and they have legitimately been slandering him, I'll give you that. But the thing is, Owen, you're enough. Right? You are your talent, your abilities, the things that God has given you, it is enough. It is more than sufficient. Right? You're not missing any meals. Right? You're always going to be funny, and people are always going to pay money to come see you. It may not be millions of dollars like you were hoping for, but it will be enough. Nobody's going to starve. Your children will be fine. Stop leasing that space in your head, because it's been 4 days now, man. I can't even watch anymore. Stop talking about those people. They're weak. You're leasing space in your head to weak people. People who will slander you behind your back, ironically, in front of everybody. Stop talking about them. Stop giving them space inside your head. They've not earned it. You can't care about what these people think. They're sick. You see what I'm saying? And you need to be strong, and you need to let those people, I'm not saying, like, don't stand up for yourself, but don't go on about it for 4 days. You should stand up to people, right? Stand up to people, assert yourself, say what you have to say, and then drop it. And I'm going to give you an example of that. This is from the book of Matthew, chapter 17. This is a side of Jesus, and by the way, I'm writing a book about this right now. This is a side of Jesus that nobody ever talks about. You'll never hear this in a Sunday morning sermon, and I know that because I have sat in Sunday morning services my entire life, and I've never heard this particular thing pointed out. And it's bizarre because it's like, man, it's right there on the paper. It's right there on the paper, right? Now we're going to be talking about Jesus and Peter in a exchange that they had. Now the thing about Jesus is that even particularly in Christianity, people think that Jesus was some sort of pussy, some sort of pushover, right? That a guy who was just super nice and just passive aggressive and just never rocked the boat, like that kind of guy. I can assure you that is not the case, right? Jesus was very loving, but he was also very secure in himself. He was a very masculine guy, right? He worked a hard job for 30 years. Well, not 30 years, but, up until he was 30. He was muscular. He was strong, right? He was an outdoorsman. He was a hardy kind of guy, right? He wasn't like those pasty white dudes that always end up playing Jesus in some movie. That's not what Jesus looked like. All right, that's just they use those people because that's what sells movie tickets. Let me introduce you to Jesus as he actually was. This is Matthew 17, 24 through 27. It says, "And when they came to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and says, doth your master pay tribute?" Now, let me explain this really quick. The disciples were traveling, and they came to a town called Capernaum, right? And the Romans owned everything, and they had roads, the Roman road, right? And the Roman road, like I'm in Albania right now. You can go see the Roman road through Albania. You can see the Roman road in Spain. The Roman road went everywhere. That was their whole thing. They built roads. That's how they conquered the world, is they built roads. And I'll do a whole nother sermon on the significance of that at another time, but that was the thing. And if you wanted to travel on that road, you had to pay the tax, right? You had to pay. It was a toll road, just like we have today. Same thing, right? You have to pay the toll. However, you didn't have to pay the toll if that road was going through like your town. You know what I mean? Like if you lived in that town, you could use the road, but like if you started traveling, then you had to pay it. So they get to Capernaum, and the people that were in charge of collecting the toll came to Peter when he was by himself. Jesus wasn't standing there, but I believe that he was standing close by. But they came to him and they said, "Hey, you're one of Jesus's disciples, right? I didn't notice you guys paying the toll for the road. Does your master, does he think he's above that? Is he not down for the cause? Like, we need this road. Everybody has to pay it. Everybody's got to pay the toll, man. What does your master not pay his fair share?" That's what they were saying. And Peter says, and this is verse 25, "Yes." That's the end of that sentence. Doesn't your master, like, doesn't he do what the rest of us do? Doesn't he pay the toll too? And Peter said, "Yes, of course he does." Now listen to this very closely. Words are very important. "And when he was come into the house, Jesus prevented him." Right? So remember, just picture it in your mind as these are all actual people who once lived 2,000 years ago. A group of little dudes, little Jewish dudes, walk up to another little Jewish dude who's big. Peter was probably a very strong man. He was a fisherman. A bunch of little group of Jews walks over to this other Jewish guy. Says, "Hey, does your master also pay the same things that we have to pay?" And Peter says, "Yes. Yes, of course he does." And then he walks away from that transaction, and he starts walking into this house where Jesus is. And look what it says. When he was coming into the house, it says Jesus prevented him. Prevented. That's a strange word. Whenever you see words like this, you have to stop and be like, "Oh, that's weird that you used that particular word. Why did you use that word?" Why doesn't it say that Jesus met him at the door? And when Peter was walking into the house, Jesus met him at the door and gave him a talking to. But it doesn't say that. It says that he prevented him. As in, he stiff-armed him. He gave him the forearm shiver. Remember that from football? It says he prevented him. He pushed him. put him back up on his heels. And when he was coming to the house, Jesus prevented him and said, Simon, what are you thinking? Let me ask you this, Simon. The kings of the earth, who do they take customs or tributes from? Do they take it from their own children, or do they take it from strangers? Right? So this is a heated exchange. And this is not starring the pussy Jesus that Christianity teaches you about, or, movies about Jesus teach you about. This is the real Jesus who went up to a fisherman, who, a strong man, a man of the ocean. These are tough people. And Jesus goes up to him and prevents him. It says he prevented him. If it were not physical, if this was not a physical exchange, the word prevented wouldn't have been used. It would have been, he met him at the door. No, this is Jesus standing in the doorway saying, you're not coming in here, Peter. We're going to have ourselves a talk. You just spoke on my behalf. Those men were asking questions about me and you answered? Don't speak for me. And when they came to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and says, does your master pay tribute? And he said, yes. And when he was come into the house, Jesus prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? What are you thinking, Simon? Who is it that the kings of the earth take tributes from or take customs from? Do they take it from their own children or do they take it from strangers? You answer me, Peter. Whoa, Peter says. Strangers. Of course of strangers. And Jesus looks at him and says, then the children are free. Then the children are free. The children are free. I'm from here. I don't pay taxes on this. This is where I'm from. I'm a child of this kingdom. I don't pay tribute money for this road. This is my heritage. This belongs to me. I'm free. I'm a son of this land. Who pays tributes? Who do the kings require taxes or customs and tributes? Do they take it from their own children or do they take it from strangers? And Peter said to him, well, of course, they take the money from the strangers because they don't belong here. And Jesus said to him, then the children are free. I'm free. Right? Don't speak on my behalf. Don't be talking in my place, Peter. I'm a grown man, Peter. If those people want to know something about me, they can come to me. Don't be talking for me. I'm a grown-ass man. I don't need you. And then it goes on, and this was Peter's punishment for being so presumptuous. And you have to understand this. Peter was a professional fisherman. So think about this. It says, notwithstanding, so this is Jesus speaking. He says, now, I understand. Let's not offend these people. He says, go to the ocean and, fashion yourself a little hook, piece of string. Cast it into the ocean. And take the first fish that you catch. The first one that comes up. And when you have caught it, I want you to open up its mouth. And there you shall find a piece of money. Take that and give that to them for me and for you. Right? Now think about this. Right? Think about this in the context of how you've learned about how, who Jesus is. Like he's some pushover. He's some dirty hippie that was just skipping about the countryside going, man, I guess you could just do whatever you want, man. That's not who Jesus was. He just told a grown-ass man who was a professional fisherman to go down and go fishing. And then he presumed to tell Peter how to fish. And he said, Take up the first fish and open its mouth and you're going to find some money. Think about that if you're a professional fisher. Think about, you have to put yourself in Peter's shoes in this case. Like, you're Peter now, right? And you're looking at this guy who, at this point in the story, it's like he may or may not be the Messiah, but he says some pretty crazy things that makes me doubt sometimes. And he just told me to open up the fish's mouth and find some money. It's like, first of all, Jesus, number one, fish don't have money in their mouths. And even if you believe that there are fish that for some reason they maybe somebody threw a token in the ocean for good luck, and it was shiny and it was spinning as it fell through the water, maybe a fish, like a lure, went up and bit it and choked on it, and it got stuck in their mouth. Maybe that could happen, but it's certainly not gonna. I'm not gonna win the lottery and just catch that fish that happened to. That's impossible. Mathematically, that's just ridiculous, Jesus. You're talking nonsense, Jesus. Go catch a fish, and the first one I pull out of the sea, it's gonna have some money, and it's come on. However, Jesus was still his master, and so he did what the master had commanded him to. Begrudgingly. You imagine Peter standing there on the coast, at the Sea of Capernaum, going, "What have I gotten myself into? Man, I left my wife at my dad's house for this. This is so stupid. Why is Jesus telling me to catch this fish?" And then, bzz, he gets a snag on his line, and he pulls that line up, and he's like, "This is so dumb. This is ridiculous." And he grabs that fish and opens its mouth, and sure enough, "You're too much, Jesus." Right? That wasn't like a feel-good story. That was Peter's punishment. Hey, Peter, don't be talking on my behalf. Don't be talking about my money. Because let me tell you something, Peter. If I need money, I'll get money. If I want money, I will have you go down and catch fish all day long, and I can have as much money as I want. There's just a whole ocean of fish floating around with money. Peter, I don't need you talking for me, and I don't need you addressing my financial situation with strangers. I don't need you for that. You understand? You don't need the approval of other people. Everything that you have is everything that you need. You have. It's in you. God has given it to you. Owen Benjamin, you are a genius comedian and pianist, right? And a father and husband. You have everything. You have everything. God has given you abundant measure, pressed down and shaken to overflowing. You listeners, you must understand that you are free in this time. Free to and free from. Right? Somebody comes to you and says, like, "Oh, you have to call me Z or Zer or whatever. You have to embrace the idea that that a man wearing a dress can use the same bathroom as your daughter." No, I don't. No, I don't have to say that. I don't have to believe it. I'm not giving you any space in my mind. This conversation is over. And I don't care if you agree with me. I don't need your approval. I need my daughters to be safe. That's what I need. I don't need your approval. I don't need your approval to live my life. These conversations that we're getting into as a society right now, they're getting more and more dangerous. We have clear evidence that the media is manipulating the information that you're getting, that the government is, that our government that we've put in place, that's all of it. Not just the three branches, but the different departments, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the Central Intelligence Agency, what's the one I'm thinking of? The NSA, the National Security Agency, like all these agencies. It has been clearly demonstrating that they have been working against the American people to deprive the American people of their freedoms. Here's the beautiful thing about freedom, right? You can give it away, but nobody can take it from you, right? You can give up your freedoms. Those people in Malibu, they gave up their freedom. They don't have it anymore. They don't have it anymore. They can get it back, but right now, they don't have it anymore. You can give away your freedoms, but it cannot be taken from you. They can take your life, but not your freedom. Right? What are they going to do? They're going to kill every free person in the world? How long, right? How long would it take them to kill people like me? Kill people like Alex Jones? Or these Antifa people who, beat and try to kill old men in the streets? How long would it take if the FBI and the NSA and even the United States Marine Corps, the United States Army, like how long of killing would take place before the other people who were going along with the flow decided that freedom was more important to them, and before they started standing up? You understand, like there is a fight coming, right? And as long as you are free, you'll win, even if you die. Even if they kill you, you will still win. You will have died on your feet. It's the people who live on their knees that lose. Those people in Malibu, they lost their soul over Harvey Weinstein, a disgusting, fat piece of shit. They let that man rape women so that they could keep those checks coming. They could keep those invitations to the red carpet coming. That's what they sold their soul for. And now they have to live on their knees. Would you trade that? You listen, not you, Owen Benjamin, but you listener, would you trade that? What if I told you, listen, I'll give you $100 million, a house paid for in Malibu, California, and every year you get to go to the Emmys and the Oscars and the CM, like you get to go to the red carpet, you get to be put on TV and have a rush of people rushing to you and putting, microphones in your face so that they can ask you who made the clothes that you're wearing and what do you think about this and that. Like you'll get to be famous. But here's to get that, to get everything that I just offered you, there's one thing you have to do. You may never again speak out against injustices that I deem damaging to my cause. You will have to silence your voice. It won't be anything big. I'll just tell you, don't talk about women's rights. Don't tell anybody that you think abortion is wrong, right? You won't be able to tell anybody. I'll give you a whole list of things. You won't be able you won't be able to speak out against violent people coming in our country unchecked that are violent and want to kill us. You won't be able to speak about that. You will not be able to address the fact that the wage gap has been disproven, right? And that the reason that there is a difference between what men earn and what women earn is very explainable and very understandable. But you will not be able to speak against that or speak out on that. You will have to, you will be required to silence your voice and allow me to occupy that space in your mind where reason exists. You'll have to give that up. Would you do it? Would you? There's a lot of people that would, certainly. But if you would, then you're a slave. You've got the heart of a slave. You have the spirit of a slave. Right? And you will have then committed to pissing away this particular life that you've been given. I don't know how the afterlife works. I have a belief about it, right? But I don't know if you get another try. I don't know if reincarnation is a thing. I don't believe it is, because that's not what my book teaches. But who knows? Nobody really knows. One thing is for sure, is that this particular life that you're living in right now, this is the one that you've got. That we can be assured of. And if you commit to giving that up, to giving this life up and saying, oh, I just want to be comfortable and famous and rich, and I will give up my life for it. I'll give up the rights that I have to my own life, to claiming my own ground and standing my own ground. I'll give that up if you just make me famous, just a little bit of fame. I just want to be a little bit more famous than everybody. I just want to be a little bit more rich than everybody. Would you do that? Well, then you're a slave, if you would. Be free. Be free. You have the freedom and the responsibility to yourself and to this life and to your God. You must be free. And in these times, you must understand that there are consequences to freedom. It's not cheap. Right? Free does not mean without expense. Freedom is not without expense. So, Owen, stop leasing your headspace to those people. They're pieces of shit. They were never going to be your friends. You weren't going to win to begin with. There's 7 billion people on this planet. They're not all going to be your friends. Right? There's a dude in India right now shuffling through garbage to find food. Guess what? That guy's never going to be your friend. What's the difference between him and Theo Vaughn? Right? What's the difference between him and Harvey Weinstein? Harvey Weinstein is never going to be your friend. Right? And you shouldn't want him to be. If these people, Theo Vaughn and, Candleface Lady and, all these people, if these people are talking shit about you, they weren't going to be your friends to begin with. Don't worry about it. Your art is sufficient. Your creativity that God gave you, that is sufficient. Live in that and be free in that. Stop talking about them, man. I've had to listen to you for 4 days. It's enough. All right, that's the show for today. Be free, people. Be free.